Hello, everybody. I'm Zenith, and welcome back to the Disney Debate, where Kat Mac and I talk about Disney products and Disney in general. So, how's it going today, Kat?
I feel like flying high in the sky because I'm high like a kite.
Today is a welcome relief from last week. That TV show was seriously starting to drive me insane, but now, today, we have Peter Pan.
Yay!
All this has happened before, and all this will happen again, but today it happened to us.
Yeah, we watched Peter Pan, and of course, who doesn't know Disney's Peter Pan? This is the first Peter Pan, both in stage and movie version, to ever feature an actual male Peter Pan.
And it's Bobby Driscoll.
Yes, the good old Bobby Driscoll, who we like to rag about on every single film he's in. And in this case, we don't have to, because he's actually good.
Yeah, it's surprising. Like, I've seen this film before. I saw this film as a child. It's a very big part of my childhood. And, I I couldn't put the Bobby Driscoll voice to this character, because we've seen a lot of older Bobby Driscoll films, and he can't act. But then I saw this, and I'm just like, maybe the problem was that he was actually in a live-action production.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually a pretty decent voice actor. Who'd have thought?
Yeah, go figure. But before we really get into more specifics about the movie itself, what is it like for you to see Peter Pan again after all these years?
Very, very nostalgic for me, because I grew up with Peter Pan, and actually not just this version, but other versions as well, including the Mary Martin version, and later on what was there, Kathy Rigby? The Kathy Rigby version?
I've actually never seen the Kathy Rigby version.
Well, because also I saw it because, like, I'm in theater and everything, and of course I've been in Peter Pan. And believe it or not, you wouldn't expect this, but I actually played Mr. Smee in Peter Pan, my version of Peter Pan. So of course I had to do major research, and that just brought back so many fond memories. And I remember Peter Pan quite fondly. I mean, and I also like the other adaptations that have since spawned since then, like Hook. I mean, I don't care what the nostalgia critic says. I love Hook. Hook is amazing. And even the newer version of Peter Pan, where they actually do have a guy playing Peter Pan, and it's a bit different, but at the same time kind of similar to the book. Like, I actually thought that one was pretty decent, too. So, yes, I am quite fond of Peter Pan.
For me, I have a very big history with Peter Pan. It was one of the first Disney films that I saw when I was a child, like when I was very, very young. I remember, like, I would watch this over and over again. I even had the little hat when I went to Disney World. I got the Peter Pan hat. And I really enjoyed this film. And now, it's not perfect. I didn't see a lot of the problems when I was a child, but it's not a perfect film, and we'll delve into that a little bit later. But this was a big part of my childhood, about like the fact that it's about a person who doesn't want to grow up and just wants to stay a kid and have fun. That really resonated with me as a child, and I have seen a lot of the other adaptations. One of the major ones that I always saw, even more than the original, was the Mary Martin version. Like, I would always put that on because I love that. That's so well done and so well put together. It's not a Disney film, but seriously, if you can see the Mary Martin version, go see it, because I highly recommend it, especially for the amazing musical numbers involved. I do love Hook. I do see the problems that the nostalgia critic brought out with the movie Hook, but honestly, I think Dustin Hoffman does an amazing job. This is one of the better Robin Williams movies, And that's saying something. That's really saying something, because later in his career, he didn't get a lot of good acting roles, especially in serious parts, and this is a very big serious part for him. And I think it really delves into the Peter Pan character a little bit more in Hook, and I really enjoyed that. I haven't seen Peter Pan, the live-action version that they recently put out, and I don't really have a desire to. It just, from the way it looks like they're trying to make Peter Pan into Pirates of the Caribbean, and I didn't like that. I didn't really enjoy the trailers for that. So I may see it later on, but for the most part, I think all of the other adaptations explored a different side to Peter Pan, and were really well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because for the most part, pretty much every Peter Pan adaptation has managed to stick to the original story with a few variations here and there. But yeah, it's a very enjoyable story. I mean, this is like the perfect story for kids, because of course every kid gets in that one mindset where they said, "Oh, I don't want to be a grown-up. Grown-ups are mean and boring and stuff. I want to have fun forever." And this is like the perfect adventure story for them. So yeah, the author J.M. Barrie, he also actually felt that way very strongly, because he believed that, to a degree, kids shouldn't grow up because they lose that sort of innocence and playfulness. You know, that it's the typical thing, like when you grow up and you don't have, you know, you kind of lose a lot of your past self. He always like envisioned a place where, you know, kids never lose that. And the story, like, you know, it's really perfect, a place. I mean, but at the same time, when you kind of really read the story and see everything that goes on, Neverland is both a utopia and also a sort of trap for whatever kids go there. Because true, you have an area where you're not controlled by grown-ups, and, you know, you're free to, like, have fun and do what you want and everything, but at the same time, there's a lot of things there that are trying to kill you.
And it does fit in a lot with Disney philosophy in the sense that, you know, you always want to have that childlike wonder. And I think Disney himself had that same spark about him, the same passion, is like dreaming the impossible, you know, with trying to overlook the realities of life and just have that childlike wonder about them. And I think the place of Neverland actually reminds me a lot of the Isle of Misfit Children from Pinocchio.
Yeah, that does remind me a little bit of it, except not as, you know,
it's
hellish.
not as dark, and it's not for me. It's not for bad children. It's for children who want to escape from things. And while it does say, okay, keep that childlike wonder, it also says, okay, well, you can do that while at the same time growing up.
Yeah, and that's actually one thing about Neverland, something that they never, that, you know, is a big factor in the book, but that they don't really address or at least elaborate on in the movie, is the thing about Neverland is that, yeah, you, first of all, you never grow up, but at the same time you tend to forget, because you're pretty much stuck in limbo. And, you know, just doing whatever to pass the time, and pretty much this causes you to forget that, you know, you ever had parents, that you ever had a life, you know, in another land or anything like that. You're pretty much just living day to day, sort of like a goldfish, where, you know, you only have like so much like, you know, capacity to like store memories, and you're pretty much just living for the moment. And in a way, that's both kind of cool, but also a bit horrifying. I mean, to me anyway, because, you know, true, like, I'll go to a place that, you know, I'll have the most fun of my life, but at the same time, I won't remember what my mom's face looks like. That is kind of terrifying.
And yeah, they don't really delve into that in this version. That's more about that's more in the Hook version, and a little bit in the Mary Martin version, not much. But it's not really explored here too much. There's that one point where they're all like, "Oh, I want to see my mother," and they have that big scene where Wendy sings one of the best songs in the film, but it's not really presented as such a psychological thing.
Yeah, I mean, this movie's more just for fun, and just, showing kids, what, like, a magical land that they could, like, pretend to be a part of. Because, I imagine that, like, every kid at some point, would play Peter Pan and the Pirates, and then, have little, like, battles with their friends. Because, I mean, you're fighting Captain Hook. That's exciting. Dangerous, but exciting.
Captain Hook is just plain awesome. Even in any version of Peter Pan, I'd say he's one of the best parts of it. But we'll touch on that in a little bit, since why don't we delve into the characters of Peter Pan?
Okay. So, I guess we should start with the namesake then, Peter Pan.
Mm-hmm. Peter Pan himself in this version is kind of a dick.
Yeah, he is. If try to think back to when you were like in like junior high, think of a boy in your class that everyone has that boy in their class that's really obnoxious, always tends to like pick on other people or at least be a show off. Imagine that kid and give him the ability to fly and put him in green tights. That's Peter Pan.
Admittedly, like he does have that childlike wonder. He does have that carefree spirit. But at the same time, he's kind of hard to relate to. Like, I can relate to his mindset, but not his mannerisms. For example, whenever he goes to see like various like mermaids around the island, he doesn't think, "Oh, these people are going to be jealous of Wendy." He's just like, "Oh, they're just going to have fun," and the mermaids tried to drown her. He brings her to see the Indians, and the Indians don't treat her well at all. It's like he doesn't care.
No, he doesn't. He's pretty much, like, sure, I'll bring her to these places, and then she'll worship me more for it. So.
He doesn't like to think things through, and that actually goes to show his childlike nature. And in a sense, I don't think Peter Pan will ever really grow up. There are certain versions where he kind of does, like Hook explores that, like what if he did grow up. But in the original story version, as I said before, like it starts with the narration that says all this will happen, all this has happened before, and all this will happen again, which gives us the impression that Peter Pan has been doing this for a long, long time. And he still hasn't learned things. He still hasn't grown out of that childlike mindset.
No, he's pretty much someone who, runs away from his fears. He's constantly running. But at the same time, he can't deny his basic human needs, like, the need to see how families work, the need to hear stories, or to interact with girls of the opposite sex around his own age. Those needs are still there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, anything beyond his primary needs, he's afraid to go towards.
Exactly. And that really goes to show when he sees Wendy, he treats her as a mother figure. He wants her to be his mother. And that's a very childlike thing, especially because he's kind of the same age as her in terms of the way they look.
Yeah, because for all we know, Peter Pan could be, like, over 1,000 years old or something. Mm-hmm. But because he's probably only in the real world for about, an hour at a time, his growth is probably, like, very, very slow when it does happen. But, yeah, it's kind of creepy when you think about it. But suddenly I have the image of Doctor Who. Like, Peter Pan is actually a Time Lord who got the power to fly, and then he, like, slowly ages, like, depending on the amount of time he spends in one area.
I had a worse thought. He could be the main character from Baby Geniuses 2.
Don't mention that movie.
Super babies.
Well, one thing that we should probably bring up is the fact that they really give nothing on his backstory, like they do on in the play or in Hook or even in the live action remake later on. That kind of does take away from like some characterization for him and like making him an actual person. In this case, he's pretty much just a figure as opposed to a character.
Yeah, he's more of a symbol, I take it. Like he's a symbol of childhood himself, because he may learn some things over the course of the arc, but it's more towards Wendy and her two brothers. They're the ones learning the things, and Peter Pan is the one teaching the story. He doesn't grow old. He doesn't learn his lessons. He's meant to be a symbol of childhood in its entirety. And I really think that comes across in his character, and he's not really supposed to be as likable as the other characters. He is kind of a dick, and he is supposed to be that way, because otherwise you wouldn't see that, yeah, there are kind of bad aspects to childish thinking, and we have to explore that. If you're going to explore the good aspects of something, you have to explore the bad.
Agreed. Yeah, If anything, like, I know a lot of people have complained about Peter Pan, saying, like, oh, he's just a large child always running away from his problems. Yeah, that's true. He is. But at the same time, he's also that figure that kids want to be. You know, they want to... True, they want to always have fun, they want to be able to fly and everything, but at the same time still want to be seen as, you know, this powerful, like, authoritative figure, which he is to his Lost Boys, and as like a worthy opponent to his rival Captain Hook. So he pretty much is the embodiment of everything like a young boy would want to be.
Mm. And so while I wish they had embellished upon his character a little bit more, that probably would have taken away from his status as Peter Pan, as the symbol of the story. And his actor, like I said, Bobby Driscoll, does a great job here. He really brings across the character. And that's something I never thought I would say with Bobby Driscoll. Like, you really feel like he is this character. And I don't know if he was in his young teens at this point, or if he was still a young child, but his voice has certainly hit puberty, and he does feel like the character.
Yeah, I'd say a good couple of years has passed since Song of the South. So he probably had aged at least, 6 years? Or like 10 years at least. So he definitely is in his teens, I know that much. And you could tell that he's kind of learned from his mistakes in past movies, at least, you know, in terms of how he delivers his lines. Because he actually does give, you know, like, a real sense of that, yeah, he's this, you know, pompous ass who at the same time, you know, knows how to have fun and knows how to get others on his side.
So, I mean, I have seen better versions of the character, you know, Mary Martin, but then again, I do really enjoy his performance here, and I think this is probably the best Bobby Driscoll we've seen up until this point. I don't know if he ever appears again. He is a poster boy for Disney, so he probably will. But he does a really good job here.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, finally, Bobby Driscoll, I give you an A. Be happy.
Now, don't make So Dear to My Heart again, or I will kill you.
So, and I guess, the next character I guess we'll talk about is Wendy. Wendy, she's basically the mother figure. I mean, and it's also weird because we brought this up before, but when you look at Wendy, how old do you think she is? Now, Dave, you said about, 14, 15?
I said 15 because, while she does have a younger face, she is rather tall in this, and she does, you know, the whole growing up paradigm. I would think that would be more teenage dilemma, like, okay, I'm 15, I'm starting to become a woman, and so that, you know, the idea of growing up at that point would be something that, you'd understand why her father would be angry that she's telling all these stories and living in a fantasy world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I thought that she must have been in, like, her mid-teens, and, the reason and like you said, the reason her father was mad was because, she's, a teenager on her way to being an adult, and she's still, in a nursery with her brothers telling them all these made-up stories and such. But when I looked up, her profile, she's actually 12. 12 going on 13. And in this case, I just throw up my hands and I'm like, damn you, anime! Because, seriously, it's one of those cases where you look at a teenage girl and where she obviously looks older than she is, and it just, like, it throws you off to the point of infuriation, because you're thinking, I didn't look like that when I was a teenager. So, but maybe that's just me, because I'm short.
See, the thing is, I can kind of understand, okay, turning a teenager is a big thing for the child. That would be more a child's dilemma. Oh, I'm starting to become older, I'm starting to go through this. But that's not what the story is about. It's a bit more about the adult saying, okay, you have to grow up. And for an adult looking at a 12-year-old becoming a 13-year-old, it's not that big. They don't want their child to grow up at that age. They want to keep the child around and, baby the child a little bit more.
Yeah, that did confuse me too, but then again, this is, the early 1900s, and children back then, parents actually were in a rush for them to grow up, because, that way they could get jobs and, like, help out with the family.
That is true. I mean, her father's a stuffy aristocrat, and I absolutely love his character. We'll get into him in a little bit more. And so that would make sense for him to want her to, okay, I want you to go into the world and make lots of money and be rich and support your family of 15 or whatever.
Yeah, I think that like the whole the big one of the big dilemmas with this film, like, is the fact that, after this chain of events at the beginning, her father gets really mad and says that, oh, no more of this childishness. Tomorrow you're getting your own room and you're gonna grow up. And the way this movie's presenting it, they're making that sound like a bad thing.
And I'm like, my own room?
He's
Yay!
Like, yeah, because I'm thinking, wow, they haven't done this for her already? Because by the time I had turned 12, I mean, up to that point, I had actually shared a room with my brother, and once I turned 12, my parents were, like, hard set to get me my own space. Mm-hmm. So, and frankly, I was happy about that, so I was confused as to why, her not sharing a room with her brothers is a bad thing.
In fact, for me, I didn't share a room with my sister ever. I always actually had my own room, and we were 4 years apart. So, I mean, I don't really see the dilemma in this.
Yeah, lucky. Yeah, I always had to share a room either with my brother or my sister. So, and I always did want my own room, and it wasn't until when I was much, much older that I'd actually gotten my own room. So, yeah, I do not see the problem in this. I mean, I would have, if I was Wendy, I'd be like, cool, awesome. I could finally decorate everything without there being stuffed animals all over the place. So.
Now, Wendy as a character, I really don't see too much here. She's kind of a Mary Sue when you think about it. Tinkerbell treats her like crap throughout the whole movie, and yet she still thinks that she's lovely, that she's a cool, like, fairy. Everyone else in the movie really doesn't treat her nicely, and she does get angry at one point, but she never, like, really does anything about it. And, in fact, she talks way older than she she talks way older than the 12-year-old that she's supposed to be. She talks very sophisticated, and she acts like a mother. And I really don't see too much beside to her character besides the fact that, oh, she's there as the voice of reason. She's there to say, oh, no, boys, we can't stay here too long. We have to go home eventually. And she does serve that purpose, but other than that, I don't see too much in her.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Again, like you said, she's a lot more mature than she actually is, which, you know, does work and doesn't work. Because, you know, it shows that, you know, she is trying to sort of grow up because, you know, just to appease her parents. But at the same time, she still wants to be, you know, a young kid, but then her own sense of sophistication and logic prevents her from having fun. So she's very conflicting in that aspect. And, of course, she's like, you know, a typical girly girl in the fact that she talks a whole lot and she's very feminine and, you know, does care about her looks to a degree. And, of course, you know, she has that whole mothering instinct about her as well. So.
In fact, the first scene that shows her and Peter Pan together, Peter Pan cannot get a word in edgewise, and she's just talking and talking, and I would have been like, whoa, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I really I'm on Peter Pan's side when he says girls talk too much because, you know, while it is a little bit sexist, and we'll touch more upon that later in the film, she is talking a hell of a lot.
Oh, yeah. I don't think she took a single breath during that entire monologue.
I can understand her excitedness, but at the same time, let your idol talk, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
I will say that... oh, sorry, go on.
That's right. I was just saying, yeah, she does talk too much. And in that case, in that aspect, she is very annoying.
I will say this, though. Kathryn Beaumont, who, as we said before, also voiced Alice in Alice in Wonderland, does a much better job in this role.
Mm-hmm. Because I think the thing that works is that, you know, because she had aged a little bit since then, so her maturity does show a lot more, and it is fitting for the character.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, of course, you know, she's British, and her accent fits very, very well with her character. It's like, I think at times it sounds a little bit too sophisticated. You know, again, she's supposed to be 12, but she talks like sort of an 18-year-old. So it is also kind of conflicting at times.
Mm-hmm. But overall, I think she makes the character a bit more likable than the character really is at times.
Yeah, because in the book, I think Wendy is mostly there to A, be a mother figure, and B, be a fangirl. Because that's what she essentially is, a Peter Pan fangirl.
Squee.
So, should we talk about the other big fangirl? The one I can't stand?
Yes.
The fairy that launched a billion Hot Topic shirts. Tinkerbell.
Now, we're going to talk about the Tinkerbell movies later down the line, but really, I'm not too big a fan of Tinkerbell. I know this is going to get a lot of hate for Disney fans everywhere. Like, many people love Tinkerbell. She's an icon. Disney used her really effectively as an icon, and she's a symbol for Peter Pan in general, for that childlike wonder that Disney used, especially in the logo.
Mm-hmm.
However, her character in this is pretty much just, she's a bitch.
Yes, she is. A very big bitch, despite her small size.
And her big junk in the trunk. And that's another thing that I found a little rather odd about this, is the fact that in the opening scene when we meet Tinkerbell, they take time to showcase her looking in a mirror at her butt.
Yeah, because I think they wanted to showcase, that she's very vain, she's very girly, but she also has like that edge to her. Like I think they were trying to turn her into sort of a sex symbol, because I think to a degree she was sort of her design was aside from using the live action model, they also did kind of base her a bit on Marilyn Monroe.
I can see that, but at the same time, her really one characteristic is that she's jealous of Wendy. She's Peter Pan's best friend, and yet she tries to kill someone he just brings to the island. She tries to kill Wendy because she's jealous, and she doesn't listen to Peter at all. That she's just... You would think that she would understand after all the times this has probably happened in the past, that he's just bringing a temporary friend to the island, and that you're the best friend he's ever going to have.
Well, they do offer an explanation for this in the book, and later on in the live-action version, in that in the Peter Pan universe, pixies are so small that they can only have one emotion at a time, and it consumes them completely. So if they're happy, they're completely happy. If they're jealous, they're completely jealous. So she's kind of like sort of bipolar in that sense, where she goes from one extreme to the other.
I can understand that, but again, they don't delve into that really in this version. Yeah. And I don't know, it's just her character is like, okay, mostly angry.
Yeah, she is. Like, she's pretty much like the archetype of like the negative stereotype of women, in that, another woman is introduced into the scenario and they instantly become jealous and petty and pretty much plot to get rid of that other woman, even if they've done like nothing really offensive to them.
And so, yes, Tinkerbell is a symbol for Disney. It's a symbol for youth in general, but in this adaptation, she's not that great a character.
No, she's not. Because, like, even when she starts off, first we see how vain she is, then we see how spiteful she is, then we see how murderous she is, then how treacherous, and it's not till the end that she actually tries to help.
And even then, it's not really understandable why she has that heel turn. Yes, she's trying to protect Peter throughout the entire thing. She's only been out to protect Peter. But then at the end, she helps everyone get back home, and she's nice to Wendy. I don't really understand the turn of her character at that point.
Yeah, because I guess after she saves Peter from being blown up by Captain Hook, I guess her near-death experience taught her that, you know what, this shit doesn't matter. I'm just going to help these people get out of this place alive. But...
and she is probably thinking, well, the faster I get them home, the faster, me and Peter can be together.
Yeah, that too. So, she probably didn't have, an epiphany or a character arc or anything. She just, again, is just going out for herself and her own needs.
Mm-hmm.
But
so sorry, guys, but
sorry, I have no shame or reserve in saying that I do not like Tinkerbell. And while yes, they have tried to humanize her and make her a more rounded character in those Tinkerbell movies, which we will eventually get to, I still don't like her. I just don't, and I think the reason that she does have the following that she does is that again, she was made out to be sort of a sex symbol, so she has that real sexy appeal going for her, and B, because she appeals to those type of teenagers who thinks that being a bitch is cool and a worthy status.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but I don't know. Aside from just seeing her as herself. Because, when I do see her, Disney World or in, those little, at the beginning of those showcase movies where she disappears and like waves her magic, I do cheer. I'm like, hey, it's Tinkerbell. It's only when they actually focus on her and try to give her like, you know, lines and stuff that I don't like her. So I like her as a symbol, but not as a character.
Agreed. Especially like in Kingdom Hearts when she's used as a summon for Peter Pan. I like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
I thought that was really well done.
Mhm. In that case, she's actually useful, and you know she doesn't get in the way.
We should probably talk about the other Darling siblings, which is John and Michael Darling.
In my opinion, aside from the fact that you know that they were in the book, I really don't think these characters need to be there.
I think they're somewhat unnecessary. Like, I do see why they're there. They're kids. They're there to showcase to the audience, okay, well, you know, it's not just Wendy that who can go to this fantasy world. You too can go, like, no matter how young you are, and you can go and enjoy this world of pirates and have fun. And they are enjoyable in the fact that, you know, they have fun. The youngest, Michael, is one of the best child voice actors I've seen. And in fact, he's very believable as a child. I don't know how young the actor was, but they all pull in great performances, and they're enjoyable to watch. It's just they don't really add much in terms of character. You know, John is kind of a Percy character from Harry Potter. He's prissy, but he wants to have fun. Well, he's the inverse of Percy, I should say. He's prissy, but he wants to have fun. He wants to be that kid. And so you get to see him having fun. And Michael is just there to bring his teddy bear along. And, you know, I'm pretty sure he stole that teddy bear from Linkara.
Bear! Yeah, because, I mean, with John, he is pretty much the little boy trying to act like an adult, which is you can obviously see by the fact that, you know, he wears a top hat, he has an umbrella, and he, you know, tries to act all, you know, manly and tough and like a leader and smart, and plus he's also, even though he is smart, he tries to act smarter than he is. So he's kind of like the nostalgia critic.
Actually, the nostalgia critic is more like Peter Pan, in a sense.
A little bit. Mm-hmm. And Michael, I think, is there just to be cute. Because I think the main purpose of the boys is just to, you know, appeal to boys. Because this story easily could have been just about Wendy and how she starts off as a child going on teenage years, learning that, you know, eventually growing up is a good thing, and, you know, going through a whole character arc. And instead, with the addition of the brothers, they just make it so that, you know, they all sort of learn it, but it doesn't really sink. Because, like, with the boys, you really don't see them at the end. You don't hear from them again after the fight. So we don't know if they learned anything or if they got anything from this experience. You know, they were pretty much there.
Yeah, they don't really have a character arc in this. Yeah, they're just there to have fun.
Yeah. If anything, they serve more as the damsels in distress.
That's true.
Yeah, because they get kidnapped more than Wendy does, I think.
Yeah, first they get kidnapped by the Indians, mm-hmm. and then they get kidnapped by pirates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so... And another thing that I always wondered, because they've done, like, books and, of course, you know, reference this in movies later on, about, like, what happened to them after they grew up? Because I know with Wendy, she grew up, but she never stopped believing in Peter Pan, and even though she knew she was an adult and she wasn't able to go back to Neverland, she still believed in the whole, you know, fantasy and whimsicalness of it. But we never again hear about, you know, what happened to John and Michael, like if they felt the same way or if they just, you know, once they grew up, they forgot about the whole experience and just, you know, went on as normal adults. I always was interested to, like, learn about that.
And you don't get that in Hook because, you know, they're not around in Hook. And you don't get that in the Mary Martin version that much, other than, okay, they want to grow up now. So, yeah, you really don't get much of that.
Yeah, it's like, for them, it was probably, they probably just saw it as a dream and just left it at that. Because I just thought it was like a missed opportunity, because they are referenced in the future. You know, Peter asks about them, and they come across some of their old, like, stuff at the treehouse in Hook. But other than that, like, nothing else is ever, like, heard from them. So, like I said, you could easily take those characters out of the story and nothing would have been lost.
Now, one of my favorite characters in this story is George Darling, and that's the father figure. He's voiced by Hans Conried, who is the same voice as Captain Hook in this adaptation. And there's a lot of parallels between him and Captain Hook.
Yeah, it's the same thing in the stage version, where again the father and Captain Hook are the same actor. And I believe the whole point of that was to parallel that, you know, this whole thing could be a dream, and if it is, this is Wendy's interpretation of her father, sort of, you know, a scary, like, bloodthirsty pirate in a sense.
It does really add to that, because throughout the entire thing, they're in this fantasy world. They go, they fly, go over to the second star to the right, past some orbital wobble, and, they see Neverland, and they go through all this adventures, but when they come back on the flying pirate ship at the end, the only one who's out of bed is Wendy. And she tells all about the stories, and so it could just be a dream that she had, and even at the end when the father sees the pirate ship cloud, he could just be reminiscing about his own youth and his own nostalgia at the stories that he heard when he was a kid. And so, in a sense, this could have all been a dream.
Kind of like with Alice in Wonderland, when you think about it.
And it's strange because, like I said, the actress who played Wendy played Alice in Wonderland, and she's going through somewhat the same scenario.
Yeah, and that is kind of cool. At the same time, it's like, I know it hasn't become that way at the time, but at this point in time, it has become sort of a tired concept when you think about it.
Yeah,
they're pretty much all just copying off of Wizard of Oz. And that, was it a dream or did it actually happen? So, I don't know. I personally am kind of tired of that, that scenario. Just because, like, they pretty much just copy the original. That nobody really has an original way of doing that anymore. So, that's just me, yeah, as for the father, I like him a lot. I mean, true, he's supposed to be the real strong, authoritative figure that, is sort of the antagonist in a way for Wendy and her brothers, and the fact that he doesn't believe in all their fantasy type stuff, and he believes that they should be more practical like him and, grow up and everything. But at the same time, he has this sort of, like, charm about him, because while he is an authoritative figure, you could tell that they don't really respect him that much.
And he has the greatest tantrums ever. Like, he's like, his wife tries to calm him down, but it just wipes right off. But it's the principle of the thing, man. These kids, they're drawing on my stuff and they're not respecting me. And he reminds me of the main character from The Honeymooners.
In a way, yeah, because. Yeah, nobody takes him seriously. They're always interrupting him or disregarding what he says. And at one point when, it's clear that he must have, gotten hurt after, like, tripping over the dog, they go consult the dog as opposed to him.
I think I should reiterate, because I don't know if the microphone picked up for Doug. What Doug in the background was saying is the fact that in the 50s, they would market the males as as this character who is a buffoon, and so the female character, the wife in that case, would be more intelligent because, the people would market towards women, and women would be the people watching these shows. And in a sense, yes, I do think that Peter Pan does this, but there are times where Peter Pan is very sexist, and we're going to delve into that in a little bit.
I can agree with that to a degree, because women rights were gaining power, and of course, movies and TV were trying to adjust their characters to fit with the times. They do try to tone down the authoritative tones with the father and make him a bit more of a pratfall, and it does humanize him a lot more and makes him more of a likable character. But it would be better if they had with the mother try to take more command. Instead, she's just the loving mother who just is there to soothe the kids and soothe her husband and just be a nice motherly figure. She really leaves no impression.
Yeah, she's there as, kind of a foil to the father, but the father is the one that you really focus on, and he's enjoyable. I really love the voice actor for him, and, he also voices Captain Hook, as I said. So, going from that, let's talk a little bit about Captain Hook.
Well, real quick, I just wanted to also mention Nana.
Nana.
Yes, there's one more parental figure, per se, and that is Nana, their nursemaid, who is a dog. And she is by far the smartest dog I've seen so far in any Disney movie.
Yeah, this is the dog that you want. I mean, she's smart enough to give people give the kids their medicine. She cleans up after them, and she makes the bed for them.
Yeah, and she's also she's very maternal. She's also she's not like other dogs, in the sense that when kids are playing, dogs tend to get really excited and try to play with them. But with her, she sees them, playing and going nuts and running around the place, but she doesn't care. She just sticks to her work, and that really says something for a dog.
Yeah, even when she's berated by the father, she continues her work.
Yeah, she even hands him the rope to tie around her neck. That scene was so sad. It's like, oh, poor Nana.
Oh, why are you making the dog tie itself up?
And it's actually interesting to note the juxtapose, because in the usually in the stage version of Peter Pan, they have the person who is playing Nana in the dog suit also play the crocodile in Neverland, and again they have the actor playing the father play Captain Hook. So it's an interesting parallel when you think about it, because you have one authoritative figure who has an animal that is trying to help it, and then he also plays another authoritative figure that has an animal that's trying to eat him. So I always thought that was pretty cool, because you're thinking, so this is the real side to Nana, a murderous crocodile. she's just pretending to help him so she can eat him later.
Gonna make him fat.
So yes, that leads us on to Captain Hook, one of the greatest villains of all time.
Captain Hook is one of the best characters in any version of Peter Pan. And I like Dustin Hoffman, as I said. I think he does a great job in Hook, and I like him a little bit better than this one. But this Captain Hook is a little bit more threatening, I have to say. First of all, when we're first introduced to him, he kills someone, right off. He's just just because he's playing the accordion and he doesn't like the music.
Disney don't count.
Yeah, Disney death count has increased. There's another point in the film where just because someone says, "What, no splash?" when someone walks the plank, he gets tossed overboard and is supposed to be. He's supposedly eaten by the crocodile. Is another death, and
I think we can count that as sort of half a death because we don't know for certain.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, first of all, like, we don't know if Hook got, grabbed him either by his shirt or by his jugular. Because if he grabbed him by his jugular with a hook, I'm pretty sure that would kill him. We also don't know if he had drowned, which would seem really stupid considering he's a pirate and lives on the seas, or got eaten by the crocodile, which also doesn't make sense considering the crocodile's primary motive is to eat Captain Hook, or whether he managed to swim away. So his fate is kind of, ambiguous.
And while admittedly in Hook they do kill a few people in much more grisly ways, Dustin Hoffman is a little bit more campy. He delves more into the aspect of what is the Hook character, the philosophy of the character, and the existential nature of Hook himself. Here, Captain Hook is just a likable villain. Like, he's threatening, he's there, and, we hear stories about how he used to cut people's throats and be this really criminal pirate, but then Peter Pan came and, kind of got his goat. And so now he can't kill one boy, and that's got to be eating him up inside.
Yeah, because in that aspect, I always felt really bad for Captain Hook, because he's essentially trying to get revenge on somebody who wronged him and pretty much disfigured him. And not only that, also drew the attention of an animal that is constantly trying to eat him. So,
yeah.
If anything, Captain Hook has every right to be pissed off at Peter Pan and want to kill him. Heck, I would if I were in that scenario. So.
Yeah, while Captain Hook may seem cowardly when the crocodile's coming after him, at the same time you got to think about it like this. Like, the crocodile ate his hand, and he's after the rest of him. And so, how do you fend off a crocodile when all you have is really a hook? And yeah, he is a pretty good sword fighter, but this is a crocodile. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, and this is a freakishly large crocodile. I mean, I've seen them before, and I know how big they can get, but this one's, really freakishly huge. And, really crafty, too. And it seems to have, a homing signal for him, no matter where he goes. But the thing about Captain Hook that I never agreed with is that he's always painted out to be the more comedic and campy of the Disney villains, if only because of his interaction with the crocodile, which I guess they sort of based on the Looney Tunes cartoons because that's what it seems like sometimes, all the slapstick. But I personally think he is among the greater villains because he has a sympathetic backstory. He is a deadly fighter in his own right. He's also really smart, really sophisticated, and he can fool people either through blackmail or through just generally smoozing them over with his charisma.
I do agree that the slapstick did diminish his threat level a little bit, but I think I do really enjoy the slapstick personally. I think it's really well done comedy, and he works really well off Mr. Smee. I laugh every time he gets hit over the head with the hammer, and I think it's funny. And at the same time, there are equal amounts of scenes where he is portrayed very sinisterly, when he approaches Peter from behind during the Tiger Lily capture scene. You see his shadow climbing the rock, and that's pretty intimidating.
Or when he's climbing up the ropes, he also tells Peter that he's a coward for only fighting him when he's flying. That was pretty intense. And
he's shaded really well when he's climbing the crow's nest. His face looks a little bit demonic at that time.
Yeah, that part did scare me a little bit. Whenever he would slowly creep up on a character, Because I'm thinking, oh god, he's gonna skewer somebody.
So yeah, while he is a bit diminished by the humor at his expense, I still think he's very threatening, and I do really enjoy this version. I don't think it's quite as good as some versions. I really love the camp aspect of Captain Hook in the Mary Martin version. You know, very, very comedic still, but I think he's very funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love Dustin Hoffman. I know I keep bringing this up, but Dustin Hoffman does a great job.
Definitely. He really is Hook. I mean, he's a bit of an over the top, maybe slightly fruity Hook, but he's still Hook. Of that I can definitely say. And we should also address the symbolism of Captain Hook and the crocodile. Because crocodile is not just, an animal that just wants to eat him. From what I read, based on the book, what people have gotten from the book, is that the crocodile is supposed to symbolize time, trying to catch up with Captain Hook. Because think about it, he's probably been in Neverland for as long as Peter Pan has. Maybe a little less, but still a good portion. And so, of course, he doesn't age either. So when you think about it, the crocodile is kind of like time's way of saying that, your time is up. It's time to pay your dues all at once. And that could possibly mean, resulting in death.
And I do really like that, but it's not as explored in this version. That's actually more explored in the Hook version, where they have to smash all the clocks because of what it symbolizes to him. And so, yes, I really do like the idea of that. I wish they had done a little bit more in this version. But it does give the crocodile some nice quirks to it, like it's always bouncing, and it has a great tune to it, so I love that.
I love the crocodile. I mean, of course he doesn't talk, which is, for me, is really good because he's like that silent terror. But just his facial expressions are priceless. Just like how excited he gets whenever he sees Hook, and how eager and how crazy he gets sometimes when he realizes he's about to capture him.
And how he dances when they sing Hook is a codfish and he's like slapping the water.
Oh yeah, and those eyes. Oh my god, those eyes. Those derp eyes.
Now, the last major character in this, and there are a lot of characters here, is Mr. Smee in terms of major characters.
Mr. Smee. I played that role well. No, sorry, just patting myself on the back. But I do generally like Mr. Smee. I mean, he has been changed a lot, I'll admit, from his book counterpart, as well as other versions of him in other books, but for the most part, he's a jolly old fool. He's the typical bumbling comedic sidekick. And in a way that actually really works for him, because he's hilarious whenever he messes up. And yeah,
he is kind of the driving force of the slapstick humor, and I really enjoy it. Like, he's this bumbling fool, he means well, and yet he's always creating these problems, and it's, he's kind of like an embodiment of the Three Stooges in a way.
Yeah, and the fact that, he's not that bright. Like, he's well-meaning, but he always, messes up really big. And he's, like, really naive. Because, I mean, even though he is obviously a bad guy, he doesn't really, like, act that way toward the other characters. He doesn't really treat them like, he wants to kill them. More that it's like, this is what Hook wants, and he's just going along with it.
There's even one point where when Peter Pan shows up at the end, and he's not angry or anything. He's like, "Oh, hey, Peter Pan."
Yeah, he laughs him off. He's like, "Oh, Peter Pan, that little rapscallion."
So he's a little bit more relatable. Like, he's not really a villain character, but he's relatable as a pirate, in terms of his character. And I think he's one of the more enjoyable. Well, he isn't fleshed out as much, and that's kind of a shame. And in fact, a lot of these characters aren't really as explored as I would like. He is really well handled in this version.
Yeah, and one thing I also like is that nowadays a character like him, the comic relief side character, is nowadays characters like that are used mainly for laughs. And a lot of the time that comes at the expense of putting a hinder into the main villain's plans. So they're sort of like the pinky to the brain in that aspect. But with Mr. Smee, that's not really the case, because Mr. Smee, despite his failings and his bumblingness, does get things accomplished. Because even though he did almost release Tiger Lily after they kidnapped her, and Pan tries to fool him by imitating Captain Hook's voice, he still puts her back. It's not like he allowed her to escape or anything. And
he was just following orders. While he was kind of a fool to think that the orders would change like that, he was following orders.
Right. And plus, when Captain Hook sends him to kidnap Tinkerbell, he's able to do it no problem by himself.
Which isn't an easy task. I mean, Tinkerbell's a fast fairy. She's a pixie. She's small, she's hard to spot, and she's fast.
Yeah, and he did it in a way that, didn't hurt her or anything. And he even apologizes for it after he kidnaps her. So he's a very enjoyable character. I loved him a lot, and I loved playing him, too. Although I will say he is a bit more bloodthirsty in the play version. And in this one, he's more just, the happy-go-lucky guy. And he is a bit dumbed down as well, because he does do some pretty stupid things, like shaving the butt of a seagull that he thinks is the captain's face. I mean, come on. You really need new glasses if you can't tell the two apart. Either that or you're really ugly.
But that's kind of it for the major characters. And when I say major, like, a lot of these characters aren't as fleshed out as I would like. I think the major players are Captain Hook and Peter Pan and Mr. Smee. But after that, like, the Lost Boys themselves aren't really fleshed out. They're just kind of random children who like to rough around.
Yeah, I should also mention one of the Lost Boys, the kid in the bear suit, which they call Cubby
Bear.
Yeah, his voice. Oh my God! I mean, speaking as a brony, and that whole situation with Derpy Hooves and how they made her sound, I think people would be really pissed off if they kept that version of his voice in the sequel, because he really does sound retarded, including the acting retarded. He's like, he talks like this. So I am really glad that they changed that in the sequel, because that voice, oh my God.
I mean, the mermaids aren't fleshed out. They're there to showcase, they're mermaids on this island. It's very fantastic, but they aren't fleshed out at all as characters, besides, we just wanted to drown her. They're pretty much they're like there's like Tinkerbell attitude they have.
Well, actually, one thing I should note about the mermaids is, first of all, the mermaids don't exist in the original stage version of Peter Pan, because I don't think they really had the means or anything to like do mermaids at the time. Not to mention that the mermaids really don't serve any purpose. And in later adaptations that I've seen, the mermaids are basically just there to be seen. Because, I mean, in Hook, they show up briefly just to save Peter after, from drowning. And then in the newer live-action version, they're there kind of to give Peter some information, but at the same time, they also try to drown Wendy. Because that's essentially what mermaids are. They're sirens, and the sirens lure people to their death with their beauty and their singing voice. So if anything, the movie version of the Disney version actually gave them personality. So
personality as creatures, as mermaids, but not individual personality.
Yeah, but they're pretty much there just, again, to be seen. They really don't serve any purpose.
That's true.
Yeah, they're there for the girls to sing.
And so, now, before we get into a few other aspects and close out the video, there is something we have to bring up with the final faction of the film, the Indians. Now, we talked in Dumbo about how some people thought that the crows were racist, and we didn't really believe that.
Because, I mean, to a degree, yeah, they probably do fit a certain stereotype, but they had their, more positive aspects that helped overshadow that. But as you were saying...
Here, I can't defend Disney in this. The Indians are very racist, and not just in the they sound like a certain stereotype. The way they're drawn is very racist, and given the time period, I can understand that. People didn't understand Indians. Indians were very demonized in culture, and so they look very stereotyped. They behave very stereotyped, and the fact that the chief does look like kind of a horned demon when you look at him. So I can't defend Disney on this. There's only one small thing I can give it, is that the fact that the Indians are the friends of the Lost Boys, and they're supposed to be good characters, and this is a little bit of a step up from films like Stagecoach, which basically the Indians were really bad people, and they would just, come scalp you and kill you for no reason. And they were very demonized there. So it's a step up from films like Stagecoach, but honestly, the way they're portrayed is very racist, and I can't really support that.
Well, I do have to... I do have to sort of, contradict you a bit on the Indians being friends with the Lost Boys. If anything, they're more like two tribes that happen to live in the same area, and if anything, they're kind of there just to fight more for their own amusement, rather than, for any, any internal, discord. Because... They said that, for, many moons we always fought with Lost Boys. Sometimes you win, sometimes we win. So I wouldn't really call them friends.
But they said it was a game.
Well, yeah, it's a game. It's a game in the same sense that, if you go out paintballing, you're gonna be, shooting it up with a rival team that also wants to have fun. It's not like, buddies going out and then, playing each other in a game of air hockey. It's more just, people, two groups with mutual interests that like to mess with each other.
Okay, so let's agree that they still are very negatively portrayed, and I still think it's racist, but I still think they aren't quite as demonized as they were back in, the 20s or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, because, they don't immediately kill the Lost Boys when they think that they have kidnapped the princess, but at the same time, they still threaten to.
Yeah. And so, like I said, they are very racist, and, Disney should have known better. But I think this is a product of the times, like something else that we're going to mention in a little bit. I mean, Indians in today's culture still are not viewed as as well as they should be.
Well, here's another thing. They were actually portrayed better, in my opinion, in the stage version. Because the Indians were actually major players. Because, again, they didn't have the mermaids, so it was just the pirates and the Indians. And the Indians, of course, were also enemies with the pirates. And the Indians, like, for the first part, they were mostly just, going around hunting and everything. And then Princess Tiger Lily is kidnapped. But they don't immediately blame the lost boys. Like, in fact, they don't do that at all. And then when Tiger Lily is rescued by Peter Pan, and then Peter Pan is in turn almost killed by Captain Hook, she saves him. She saves Peter Pan along with all the other Indians who drive away the pirates. And because they've saved each other, they form an alliance. And they actually guard the boys' homes because they know the pirates are going to be going after them. And even though they are defeated by the pirates, they come back later and help them fight on the pirate ship. So like I said, they are very major players, and they do help out a lot. And true, while they are played in a stereotypical manner, because like they even have this whole song called Ugga-Wug, at the same time, I see them as being more capable and less negatively stereotyped than they are in the movie. In the movie, I really think that they kind of went a little overboard and a little bit all out in portraying them in their most, unfavorable light.
It's the kind of thing where you're doing a film, you're a film company and you're making a film like this. I don't think you should do something politically like this, like portray Indians in such a light. But again, like I said, it's the product of the times, and it was rectified in later versions. I can't get behind Disney on this, but I understand it.
Yeah, it's just disappointing to see that, because the issue of the Indians and their stereotypical portrayal is also present in the book as well as, the play version, because, the author at this point never envisioned it would be made into, like, a movie because they didn't exist at the time that would be adapted, for the masses. This was just his version, and, being an Englishman, probably not knowing that much about Indians at the time, probably didn't foresee how badly out of context they would all be, made into. But, yeah, with this, it just makes me so mad just to see that, they could have done something really good with these guys, made them like a driving force like they did in the play, and they didn't. And I actually am happy that they left the Indians out of the sequel, because I don't think there was any way they could have redeemed themselves from there, even if they tried.
Mm-hmm. Now, another thing that we really have to bring up is the sexism.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, boy.
In addition to the racism, the sexism is another big factor in this. Wendy herself is really treated like, it's not even like a stereotypical girl. It's like they're treated like, okay, girls can't do anything, and the men are glorified in the sense.
Mm. Yeah.
There's even a point when during the Indian scene, one of the women of the tribe says, tells her to go get firewood while everyone else parties, and she's the one doing all the work, and it just, I can't stand behind this.
Mm. Yeah, pretty much every negative female stereotype is portrayed in this movie. You have Wendy, who is pretty much the mother figure of the group. She's kind of like the Hermione to John and Michael's, like, Harry and Ron. And the fact that, while she does want to have fun at the same time, like, she's kind of, like, so up there in her own authoritiveness that she, again, she plays the role of mother. She tells them what to do. She berates them when they do something wrong. And that's always been a character that I've had problems with, because girls should not be portrayed that way. They should not be, a sex symbol like Tinkerbell is, but also a bitch, and not be, the overwhelming, like, homely mother figure. Because those are just so degrading. And like I said about Tinkerbell, like we mentioned before, she's, this typical stuck-up bitch, that gets jealous of everyone. And then the mother, she's the subservient housewife, has no real personality of her own or opinions to speak of. And then you have the Indian mother, who is a strict traditionalist, won't let other women have fun because it's not their place. And then Tiger Lily, she says nothing. She only has like one line, and that is help. How much more insulting can you get than that? She doesn't even attempt to escape. She doesn't attempt to, like, fight her captors or, like, figure a way out. She just sits there with her eyes closed and nose in the air and just is the damsel of distress. That's pretty much it. And then she does an insulting dance at the end. I know people don't, like, really see it, but what she does is, like, she does a sort of dance for Peter Pan, and it's kind of like mimicking the virgin dance that some tribes tend to do. And it's insulting.
Yeah, there's really no good aspects to these female characters and the way they're portrayed. A lot of them are really big stereotypes, and I think the biggest issue here is that Wendy is she just goes around from place to place. No one treats her with respect. Not even Peter Pan. No one treats her with dignity. And, everyone tries to kill her or treats her as if she's just a woman. And gender should not be the big issue here. Everyone should be able to embrace everyone should be able to embrace their inner child. And so that's a very big problem in this adaptation. Besides being a stereotypical bitch, Tinkerbell is Tinkerbell is used throughout the entire film. Tinkerbell is kind of treated as a tool. She's captured. She's not her own person, and she is, even if she is supposed to be a sex symbol. In this version, she's kind of like, okay, well, we should use women as a sex symbol. Is kind of the message that they're trying to portray.
And she's manhandled a lot. I mean, she's grabbed by Peter, she's grabbed by Michael, by Captain Hook, by Mr. Smee. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, I know you can't really, like, see just grabbing a fairy as sexual harassment, but the fact that she's able to be grabbed so often and just, have people, use her for whatever, that sends off a really bad message.
And I don't know how much pixie dust she has, but, she's used for her pixie dust, and against her will. So, it's again saying women don't have a say in this. So, yeah, I really can't get behind that.
No, it's infuriating, really, when you think about the whole thing, because all the women have three things in common. One, that they're each a different negative portrayal of women. Two, that there's always a jealousy issue going on. Tinkerbell's jealous of Wendy, or Wendy's jealous of Tiger Lily. And three is that almost all of them are pretty much damsels in distress. Tinkerbell gets kidnapped. Wendy gets kidnapped. Tiger Lily gets kidnapped. It just sends such a bad message, saying that, true, this is Neverland. This is where all kids can have fun and never grow up, unless you're a girl, in which case, you either got to be our mother or be something for us to save. Or give us pixie dust.
Those are two big glaring problems with this adaptation that unfortunately I can't get behind them. But if you... Sorry.
I was going to say, because the female characters are much stronger in the play version and other adaptations. Because, true, they still have, the sort of downfall that, they are women and they are going to be kidnapped, but they at least, try to fight back. They at least have lines. They at least don't try to be their own person and not fit this, these ugly stereotypes, and it's just to see them go down. It's ugh. As a woman, I am really insulted.
But ignoring those two big points, and I know it's hard to do, getting beyond that, I think a lot of what the heart of the film is doing is very good, and the message that the film is trying to portray, I really enjoy. I really enjoy a lot of these characters. I really enjoy the fantasy elements of this. I really enjoy the adventure of the series. And it's sad to see that such a good, something that could have been much better is taken down a peg because of the racial and gender insensitivities. Now, we should touch upon the music of this film, because unlike Alice in Wonderland, they do the music in this film really well. They only have a few songs, they're reprised a few times, and they all strike a chord. I think they're all very iconic of the film, and a reason why this is remembered so well.
Yeah, I really do like the music, and actually there is a song or two, like The Second Star to the Right, that actually was supposed to be in Alice in Wonderland. And I think that once they cut it out and decided to use it later, they managed to, fix the lyrics and then, build up the songs a little more and make them that much more memorable. And I think that was a good decision on their part, because instead of, just making them shoehorned in just because they're supposed to be there, like in Alice in Wonderland, they made them their own unique songs. And the singing choir they got for it is really good too.
Yeah, for most of the songs, or for at least for the first two songs, is the Jude Conlon chorus and the Mellow Men, and I think they're probably the best chorus that Disney has shown up until this point, where you can hear every word they're saying. Some of the previous choruses you can't. And they're a lot more melodic.
Yeah, that's one thing to note, is that aside from Wendy, I don't think any of the main characters ever sing. Yeah, I think it's all just, all the songs are sung by groups of people that either aren't in the movie or are there all at once. But I still like it nonetheless, especially the song "You Can Fly."
I think Second Star to the Right is a very memorable song. I love You Can Fly. I think that's just one of those ones that you remember as a kid, because it's something that any kid wants to be able to fly, and so it's really well handled. A Pirate's Life, I think a lot of the pirate songs in this version are much better done than Treasure Island. There's a big missed opportunity in Treasure Island. For pirate songs.
Yeah, I mean, especially with that one song, the one pirate song, "Yo, Drink Up Me Hearties Yo Ho." I mean, they could have elaborated on that a lot more. But in this, the pirate songs, they're a lot of fun. They're very jaunty. They're fun to dance to, and and sometimes it gets it goes sort of like the Broadway route in terms of their choreography, just the whole way it looks, but it's still a lot of fun to watch.
Some of the weaker songs are Following the Leader. It's good, but it's a little bit too high pitched for my liking, because you have the two boys singing it with the Lost Boys. So it's a memorable lyrics and it's a memorable song, but it's somewhat grating listening to it. And what made the Red Man red is, again, brings back the racial insensitivities towards Indians. So that's the only one song that I'm just like, okay, take that out.
Yeah, it is definitely a very racist song, but at the same time, it does have a rather strangely catchy tune to it.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part. It's just I know this is bad, but why do I like it?
Yeah, it's like their other version in the play, Ugga. You know that it's a racist song, but at the same time, it's so damn catchy you can't get it out of your head.
I know, I love that song, and I'm just like, well, at least it isn't quite as bad as What Made the Red Man Red. The best song in the film, personally, I think, is Your Mother and Mine, and um, that's the song that Wendy sings. And now, this is not the same singing voice as the actress. And that's one reason why I didn't know Wendy was the same voice actress as Alice, because, the singing voice is very different.
Yeah, that much is definitely apparent, because I don't know who does the singing voice. The person probably went uncredited, as, was a popular thing at the time. But you could definitely tell the difference in the tone. But it is a very sweet song. I think it's actually one of those more underrated songs.
It reminds me of Baby Mine, in a way.
It does.
It's like the song that, okay, you sing it and everyone starts crying because they're like, but I want my mommy now. Why'd you have to bring us back to reality, Wendy? You're such a bitch. And so, that's my favorite song in the film. And the Elegant Captain Hook is yet another good pirate song. They're all memorable in their own right, and I think they do a lot of good things. They do a lot to bolster this film for me, but it still suffers under a few problems, that we brought up earlier. The animation, on the other hand, is a step up. I think it's cleaner. It's much cleaner, much more expressive than Alice in Wonderland was. Mm-hmm. And it really showcases the talent of these artists at the time.
Yeah, I absolutely love the animation, especially in the flying scenes, because it just looks so cool. And this is one of the scenes that I kind of hope that they managed to adapt into 3D, because that would look really cool. But that's just me. I mean, I know they probably won't, given the material that's in it, but it still would be pretty cool to see. I mean, down in Disney World, there actually is an attraction where, they have Donald go through all these movies, trying to find this instrument, and he actually does fly with Peter Pan, and since you're wearing 3D glasses, you can actually see him flying, and it's pretty cool. So that would be cool. So like I said, that would be really cool if they managed to adapt that somehow to the big screen.
So we've been talking for a little bit longer than we usually do. So, overall, what do you think of this film?
Despite a lot of its failings and the insensitivities associated with it, I still can't help but like the story itself. 'Cause, I mean, it's the ultimate story for kids that, in the sense that, it panders to their imagination and, and gives them, a whole world that they can explore and, visualize being in. So, in that sense, it's really nostalgic for me, because I always wanted to fly and, fight with pirates and see mermaids and everything. So in that sense, I do have a strong liking for the film. I still am disgusted by a lot of the, racial and sexist undertones, but I still do like the movie.
I agree. I think overall the heart of the film is in the right place. I love a lot of what this film is doing. I love a lot of these characters. Captain Hook is amazing, and the idea of a kid, wanting to stay a kid is a very big thing, because, kids do feel this way. And so a lot of it I really, really enjoy, like the animation and the music. But like you said, and like we said earlier, I don't like what it does in terms of the racist and sexist overtones. They're not even undertones, they're overtones. So I still say this is a Disney classic, but I think you should go into it with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just, look at it from the eyes of a child, and try not to, really take note of some of the other things, but just try to, enjoy it for what it is.
Mm-hmm. So next time, guys, is the 25th episode.
Yay!
This is a huge milestone because I never thought we would be getting this far this fast. And while we still have a lot of Disney movies to cover in the future, the fact that we have gotten almost midway into the 50s is quite a big accomplishment.
Mhm. Yes. As I never thought that I'd get this far personally. But believe it or not, I actually was like really shy and like reserved about doing this just because, you know, I'm not the most eloquent person, as you can tell, especially when I get into my rants and everything, but, you know, I am really happy that we have, you know, come this far. And I'm glad you stuck around, you know, and managed, and, you know, was willing to do all this with me, Dave. I really am appreciative of it.
No problem. Thank you very much, Kat, for agreeing to do this, and thank you everyone who has listened to this podcast, all the fans out there, Ned, who set up the fan page, Morgan Merrill, who sets up the title cards for the show. Thank you, everyone. And to show our appreciation to all of you, we have a very special episode that we're going to be doing next time. So it's going to be a mystery. We're not going to tell you what's going to be shown, and I'm going to request Morgan not show the title card until the episode is up. But look forward to that, guys.
Oh, and real quick, big thanks to Doug for always sitting in the background listening to us and whispering stuff in my ear. So. And
making comments for us to say. And making fun of my grammar.
Yeah, so thank you, Doug.
You're welcome, guys.
But anyway, I am Zenith Rule, and this has been the 24th episode of the Disney Debate. If you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, or Disney movie suggestions for us to review that aren't in main Disney canon but have been distributed by Disney, you can leave your comments at zenithrule.blip.tv in the comments thread, or you can follow us at Twitter at twitter.com/zenithrule and twitter.com/EphraimTRabbit, or you can follow us at facebook.com/zenithrule, facebook.com/catmac, or on our fan page at facebook.com/thedisneydebate. And thank you guys very much for listening. Again, I am Zenith Rule.
And I am Kat Mac /CatTCritic/EphraimTRabbit.
And we will see you next time.
TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Thank you for watching The Media Meltdown. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. And if you like what you see, show your support on the Patreon page at patreon.com/Media Meltdown. See you all next time on The Media Meltdown.